Hi, welcome to tonight's episode of our online Progressive Summit. You'll be meeting some more candidates who are standing for strong progressive values. These people can win their races if we support them. They're running in many cases against opponents in their primaries who are represented by the same old corporate forces. We need to get in there. You can't wage a political revolution just kind of sort of sometimes. So it's your financial support, it's your volunteering, it's your social media, it's your participation, opening your mind to ways that we can support these people so they can support us in Congress. Thanks for being here. Enjoy these interviews. Well, this interview is with someone that I'm honored to say is a close personal friend of mine, as well as my favorite congressman. It's not for nothing that he's called the Senator with Guts, and you can find out more about that at senatorwithguts.com. You probably already know who I'm talking about, and that is Congressman Alan Grayson, who represents Florida's 9th District. That's Orlando. What you may or may not know is that Alan Grayson this year is running for Senate from Florida. There is no more important seat. For those of us who are progressives and want to see strong progressive voices in Congress, there is no more important race, so please really focus on this. This is Alan Grayson running for the Senate in Florida. Congressman Grayson, welcome. Thank you so much for being here.
Thank you. It's wonderful to be with you.
You know, I follow your career closely, as most of us do, and you've been saying some very strong things recently. I mentioned to you at one point, we were talking, it seems these days, about the soul of the Democratic Party, and your response was that we're talking about more than the soul of the Democratic Party. We're talking about the survival of the Democratic Party. So I'd love to hear your thoughts. This tension, this contest really going on, not only within the country, but within the Democratic Party.
Well, what is a political party? It's a group of people who come together to achieve common goals. And we're losing our sense of what those goals are for the Democratic Party. Issues just become playthings for people who want power within the party. And as they treat the issues that way, what they do is they lose touch with people's aspirations and lose touch with the voters. That's why we have such chronic difficulty in our party in motivating our voters to vote. The other side gets its deregulation. They get their anti-abortion principles embodied in law. They get their tax breaks and their, quote, smaller government and so on and so forth. What does our party deliver for us? And in essence, we face the risk that the Democratic Party voters will simply go on strike. And that's a very real risk right now, especially since we have candidates who basically tell them that nothing better can be done. Well, I don't see it that way. I'm running in order to accomplish specific concrete goals and more generally to fight the pervasive inequality that has leached itself through our social fabric to the point where we have unequal income, unequal schools, unequal health care, unequal education, and so on and so.
Now, I've heard you and also Bernie Sanders talk about FDR quite a bit. And one of FDR's favorite lines was when he would refer to the economic royalists. Well, it seems like we're reenacting that contest, aren't we, between the people who are focused on the kind of ideals that FDR had versus, once again, the reappearance of the economic royalists. What does that mean exactly, and where do you stand on that?
Well, what it means is that we're dealing with reality. The reality is that this country now has the most unequal distribution of income and wealth that we've ever seen, even going back to 1929. That essentially all of the additional income that's been accrued since the recovery started under President Obama in 2009 has gone to the top 1%. But more generally, you have to go all the way back to the 70s to find any time when people had some kind of healthy aspiration that their lives could be better over time. Wages are no higher in this country today than they were in the mid-70s. That shows you how far away we've gone. How long has it been since we even raised the minimum wage? It's been 20 years or more. So what we're seeing here in general is that there's a choice. The choice is to deal with reality, the reality of burgeoning inequality on every level, economic, social, political, and so on, or to ignore it.
Well, when we talk about wages, we talk about not having raised the minimum wage. Is that the primary factor involved in income inequality, or is it that combined with the tax breaks for the very, very wealthy? I mean, what is the most important factor there, or do they work in tandem? What creates that enormous disparity?
They do work in tandem, but underlying it all is what amounts to economic betrayal. We've had a trade policy in place now for 20 years, going back to the Clinton administration, that has employed tens of millions of foreign workers at the expense of our own. That's a choice that's made through policy. There's no sort of natural economic force, if you will, like gravity, that determines our trade deficit. That's a deficit that's determined by the political economic system, if you will. And what we've done is, for the sake of benefiting multinational corporations, we have impoverished the country. So whether you're talking about taxes, as you did, whether you're talking about trade, whether you're talking about the simple fact that the rich get richer and the poor get poorer, it all comes together in the worst possible way, which is to drive us all toward debt slavery and cheap labor.
And wouldn't Trans-Pacific Partnership only make this worse?
Oh, no question about it. The Trans-Pacific Partnership is the fast track to hell.
It doesn't even attempt.
You do have a way with words, Congressman.
Sorry, what?
When you said that Trans-Pacific Partnership is a fast track to hell, I said you do have a way with words.
Look, it's reality. I've asked the administration over and over again for their projections as to what the Trans-Pacific Partnership would do to the trade deficit. We all know it would increase the trade deficit. It would increase our trade debt, which is already $40,000 for every single human being in this country. And their answer was, well, we never bothered to calculate that. They didn't, because they know very well what the answer would be, that it's just that much worse. It takes a bad situation, a very bad situation, and makes it that much worse. I invite people to think about it. We owe $40,000 to foreigners for every single American. What if they woke up tomorrow and said they wanted their money back? What would we do? It's a horrible situation, and yet all they want to do is appease the multinational corporations who hire the $700 an hour lobbyists and commit this legal bribery called PAC contributions.
Right. Now, you support universal health care, obviously, right? And you support Senator Sanders' idea about free tuition for public colleges and universities. Is that true as well?
I not only supported it, I'm the one who introduced it in the House of Representatives. You can tell a lot from that. There's 435 of us. Senator Sanders' proposal, like President Obama's proposal, has been all over the news. Which one of us actually bothered to take that bill from the Senate and introduce it in the House? That was me.
This is the question, and it's not that anyone would disagree with you, but the question that all of us get is, how are you going to make that happen? How are you going to pay for it? How are you going to make that happen? How are you going to pay for it? Tell us what the answer is to that. How do we pay for those things? And I realize, of course, they never say how you're going to pay for a war, but I think progressives need to know the answers so that they can know how to articulate when this question comes up. How do we pay for universal health care, and how do we pay for free tuition at public colleges and universities?
Well, bear in mind that we spend roughly 35% more than any other country in the entire world on our health care already. We still have over 30 million people in this country who can't see a doctor when they're sick. If you exactly duplicated, down to every detail, exactly duplicated the healthcare system in a dozen other countries, any of which you could do, and duplicated that here in the United States, we'd save trillions of dollars. How is it that, for instance, Canada can provide universal health care to every single Canadian for 12% of their GNP, which, by the way, is smaller than our GNP, when we have to spend 17% of our GNP to not cover everybody? How is it that the UK can provide health care to every single person in the United Kingdom for 10% of their GNP, much smaller than ours, by the way, when we have to spend 17% of ours to not cover everybody? It's obvious that the system that's existing is broken. There is an inherent conflict of interest in the system. It's primarily based, at least in terms of 2/3 of the citizenry, on private insurance. Private insurance tries to get as much money as they can out of your pocket. That's their revenue. They try to give you as little as possible in return. That's called your coverage, and the difference they call profit. And that is a malicious system that ends up denying people the care exactly when they need it. And
the American people deserve better.
And the same thing is true, by the way, of public education. There are all through Europe and in some parts of East Asia, you have universal available public education to everybody. I happened to be in Finland a few months ago. In Finland, not only do you get universal higher education for everybody, but you get a stipend when you go to college, because the Finns understand that if you're in college, you're increasing your human capital. And that's something that's going to be valuable to everybody for the next 50 years or so of your life. So they actually give stipends, not just free tuition, but stipends to their college students. And their system is cheaper than ours. Their system ends up being cheaper than ours. The best schools in the UK cost basically a little more than half of what the best schools in the United States cost.
I think what a lot of people don't realize is that this will only help stimulate the free market economy because more people can get in the game, more people have discretionary income, more people can start businesses and so forth. Now, one of the things I want to make sure we wrap up with is I want to get to your race. I know you have a tough primary on August 30th, and you have an establishment candidate who's running against you in your primary. And this is where that tension is, not only in the country, but within the Democratic Party. So I want to hear a little bit about what you need from us. I think enough of us realize getting you into the Senate is so important. But I assume you need financial support, but also we need people on Facebook. We need people on the social media. We need people making phone calls. Tell us how you see your race and how we can best support you.
We're trying to do something that nobody else in the House has ever done but me. That's a shocking thing to say, but it's true. In both 2014 and in 2012, I was the only member of Congress, the only one, who actually won an election based upon contributions from small contributors. In each election, 2014 and in 2012, most of our campaign money came from small contributions of less than $200, 1 out of 435. Now I'm trying to do the same thing for the Senate. There's only one person who's ever done that in the Senate. Can you guess who that is?
Tell me who that is.
Bernie Sanders. And Bernie's now trying to do it at the presidential level, just the same way that I'm trying to do it at the Senate level. And the reason is that money is poison in politics. Money has been called the mother's milk of politics. It's the poison of politics. I can't tell you how disturbing it is for me to see my primary opponent and my two general election opponents, who are both all in the House of Representatives, cut the law into little pieces and sell it off to the highest bidder. I am unbought and unbossed. Why? Because we have over 100,000 people who've come to our website, formerly congressmanwithguts.com, now senatorwithguts.com. Right. And they contribute to the campaign, which means I can actually legislate. I can do the good work that I do. And I do it very well. I've written more bills than any other member of Congress. I've passed more amendments in the past 3 years than any other member of Congress. The former record holder, by the way, was Bernie Sanders. And then not only that, but 25 different Grayson bills have become the law of the land, passed by the House, passed by the Senate, and signed into law by President Obama in just the last 3 years alone. Nobody else can match that record. I've written the most bills. I've passed the most amendments. More Grayson bills are the law of the land than any other member of Congress. That's why Slate magazine says that I'm the most effective member of Congress. And Business Insider magazine, not the most friendly place for a liberal Democrat like me, says that I'm the most productive member of Congress. So I only can do this with the help of good people like the people who are listening to you right now.
Well, I think that those of us who do know, and that means everybody who's watching this summit knows now, that you are not only a jewel in the crown of progressive politics in the United States, but it's because not only of your capacity to articulate and to philosophize and to really make clear to everybody what progressive values mean, but you are one of the most effective legislators in the U.S. Congress, and I can't think of anything more important than making sure that you get into the U.S. Senate. If ever there was a time, we need Alan Grayson. You hear that, everybody? We need Alan Grayson in the U.S. Senate. I hope that you will get involved. His primary with the establishment, corporatized Democrat, is on August 30th, and please do everything that you can to help Alan Grayson get into the U.S. Senate, because if anybody kicks ass for progressivism, it's Alan Grayson. We send you all our very best, Congressman, and hope that this is just not only a joyful campaign for you, but a really deeply successful one. All my best, and thank you so much for being here.
Thank you. I want to thank you for being the source of truth and hope and inspiration in so many lives.
I hope we continue for a very long time. Bye-bye. Okay, everybody, I'm excited to introduce you to Dwayne Gregory, and we're talking here about New York's 2nd District. Now, this is very interesting because this is one of a few districts in the United States which is really ready to go blue after having been red for a long time. You might have heard of Congressman Peter King, a conservative Republican who has been in this seat for quite a while. And to be honest, he's been protected by some Democratic establishment. But this district, all of the local seats, all of the state, this has gone into the Democratic column, and this is ready. This one is ready to move, and we've got a candidate. got a candidate. He does not have an opponent in the primary. This man is ready to take on Peter King. We can win this seat. Please keep your eye on this one. I want to introduce you to legislator Dwayne Gregory. Hi, Dwayne. How are you?
Hi, how are you? It's a pleasure to be here with you.
Thank you. It's a pleasure to be here with you as well. In 2014, you became the presiding officer of the Suffolk County Legislature. And in 1993, you enlisted in the U.S. Army. You were in the field artillery. You've been a citizen's advocate. And you have such passions as opposing the TPP. That's a progressives. We're certainly aligned with all progressives on that one. Maybe not. I mean, maybe not some, but aligned with me anyway.
Right.
You want to secure and strengthen Social Security. You want to lift the cap, standing up for vets, of course, and free tuition in public colleges. So I want to hear two things. What are you going to do? How can you do it? And what help do you need from us in order to defeat Peter King and win this seat? And number two, once you're in there, what are you going to do with that power?
Well, thank you very much again for the opportunity to speak with you and to share my ideas and talk about this race with your audience. It's important that people understand this district. It's actually one of 17 Republican-held districts in the country where President Obama won in 2008 and 2012. Every statewide Democrat has won in this district. President Obama is, he's not a moderate. He has very progressive ideas, and this district has supported that. Like marriage equality, for instance. I'm an LGBT parent. I'm certainly proud of some of the things he has done in support of that. Obviously he's pushing TPP, which I disagree with, and I think that's important to point that out. As a Democrat, I have my views, and I'm looking to support the president, whatever party they're in. If we agree, we agree. But if we don't, I think it's important that we have leadership that says that speaks their mind and speaks the values of the district, and I'm ready to do that.
Well, I think based on what you just said, I think what's important is that President Obama helped to make the ground fertile. For you. He definitely helped by winning this district in 2008 and in 2012. He's really helped move things forward. And now he will no longer be president. And it's time for a new generation of leadership. And that's what we want you to be part of, right?
Yes.
Okay. So we thank him for helping to fertilize the situation. Now that we've gotten it, what are we going to do with it?
Right. And it's important that here in Long Island, we have so many people. In this district in particular, it's a very blue collar district. I grew up in a family that my father was an auto mechanic. My mother was a registered nurse for 30 years who worked for the state. And she often worked two jobs just to make ends meet for our family. And there are many families that are making some of the same decisions that we had to make every single week, of every single day of the week and month of the year. And those are the challenges that, when I talk to families, particularly young families who have young children who want to see their children go to college, but how do they stash away money when their wages have been stagnated and in fact lower historically than they've ever been, and while at the same time trying to save for their retirement? It's very difficult. So we need people to go to Washington who understand those struggles and are willing to fight to not only just to expand the middle class, but make the middle class stronger. And that's what I want to do. And with some help from progressives like yourself and the community, we can do it. We really can turn this district blue.
I think what's so important is that the more we let people into the economy, the more economic growth there will be. So are you for universal health care?
Yes, I believe that everyone should have the opportunity to have health care. It should be a basic right in this country. As a veteran, I see what's happening to our young men and women that are sent off to war, that are coming back, damaged, with PTSD and other ailments that they're faced with, and our government has abandoned them. And then there are people just, in Suffolk County, we have such a mental health crisis, if I can use that word, and not to be too extreme, but there's so many people that are facing mental health illnesses, and the services aren't there to provide for them, and we need to do that. And it's in our jails, it's in our schools, it's in our communities, and it's a big challenge.
Well, I think that, as I was saying, the issue for me about universal health care, about free tuition, I see you do stand for free tuition of public colleges, which I think is extremely important. Whether it has to do with health care, raising the minimum wage, which I assume you stand for, correct?
Yep, I've been a leader and helping our retail workers raise the minimum wage to $15 here in New York. Right. The governor's taken on that; he's approved it, and we're looking to expand the minimum wage for all workers here in New York.
So I think when we're talking about universal health care, and we're talking about free tuition at colleges, or at the very least debt-free college, when we're talking about raising the minimum wage, we're allowing more people to get in the game. And that's what's wrong with America today. Not enough people can get in the game. Right. And that's why this is so extremely important.
Yeah, no, I truly believe that our country is best when we're creating opportunities for our young people. And not only just making sure that those who want to get a quality education and in college, but planting the seeds for them to be successful and productive members of our society so that they can raise a family. So they don't have to make decisions between do they eat or do they have enough money if there's a major repair, whether the boiler breaks or there's a car repair. People making decisions, do they pay their rent payments or their mortgage payment? It's really horrible.
And of course, that's not just an issue for the young. And people are living longer. And a lot of people are really sort of starting over again at 50. I think continuing education is really important. So I think if we're going to talk about all citizens, we can really talk about all citizens.
Absolutely.
Dwayne, what do you need from us? What do you need from progressives? What do you need more than anything else? So I'm sure that Peter King is going to be very supported by Republican money in this case. What's your biggest need?
The biggest need is, we need resources, so that we can get our message out. Again, this is a district that is, left of center, and yet we have a very conservative member of Congress representing it. So in order to get through that noise, if you will, we need to be able to get our message out to the voters. So people who can donate, whatever they can afford, that certainly would be appreciated at DwayneGregory.com. That's DuWayne.com. And we need grassroots support, people out knocking on doors, talking to their neighbors, making phone calls. This is really going to be a grassroots effort in order to take Peter King out.
Well, I wish you the very, very best. I think that, once again, I want everybody to understand what's going on here. There are 17 congressional districts in the country that have been traditionally red, and they are about to move blue. They are really close. And what you've got in this one is interesting because you've got a well-known conservative, Peter King. He's always seemed to me like a nice man, by the way. Nice man, but we do not share politics with him. And he has been there kind of protected by the system on all sides. And yet in 2008, 2012, President Obama won this. You've got New York officials such as Dwayne Gregory who now are in leadership positions in that district. And we just needed the right candidate so that we can move away from Peter King being the congressman when you now have a left and left of center, certainly left of center constituency there. And this is what the district is made of. But they don't have someone holding the space for winning that congressional seat on those values. We have one now, and his name is Dwayne Gregory. This is Dwayne Gregory, DuWayne Gregory.com. He is unopposed in his primary, so we can go right for it. Let's support him and give him the resources that he needs, the attention that he needs, so that we can take back New York District 2. Let me tell you something. This will be a very, very sweet moment for a lot of us, Dwayne Gregory, and I wish you the very, very best.
Thank you so much, and appreciate the time and opportunity to speak with you.
God bless you, sir. Thank you. Hi, I'm here with Alex Law. Alex Law is running for Congress, House of Representatives, New Jersey's 1st District, and he's running against a man named Donald Norcross. And Donald Norcross is a first-time congressman. He is a conservative Democrat. Alex, first of all, welcome to the Progressive Online Summit. Nice to have you here.
Yeah, thank you for having me. It's wonderful to be on here with a good friend like you.
Thank you. You're 25 years old. Getting started with your political career at a young age. What got you here? What's your background? What's your education? What's your work experience? What made you want to do this?
Well, sure. So I grew up in the district that I'm now running. My family has been a part of progressive politics in this part of the world for 4 generations. My grandfather was on the school board for 3 decades, and then he became the mayor of the small town that I now live in. And my dad was on the school board, so public service was always part of who I am and the household that I grew up in. So I went to public school here and then ended up going to college at NYU Stern, the business school in Manhattan. Had a great education there. and decided to take a job doing strategy consulting at IBM. A job that I enjoyed. Every Monday I would get on a plane, fly somewhere, and help a company solve some complicated problem somewhere in the country. But how this campaign really started, some friends and I were just sitting around and talking about things that we didn't like in government, things we didn't like locally, things we didn't like nationally, corruption and graft that we've seen, and we decided rather than complain, why don't we just do something about it? So we created a website, fleshed out our policy, made some flyers, and just started knocking on doors. And from that small start, this campaign has grown tremendously to having over 100 volunteers, to having knocked on 25,000 doors. And we're really excited about our chances come June 2nd.
I'm excited about the process that occurred within you, that you went from recognizing something's wrong to wanting to do something about it, and particularly wanting to run for office. You have endorsed Bernie Sanders, correct?
Yes.
So it's very obvious to anybody who looks into you that you are part of this great political revolution that is emerging in our country. And the way I look at it, it's two rings of a political revolution. One is within the country and the overthrow of this kind of very corporate-based establishment, both in media and in government, and the corruption that follows from that. But also there's a bit of a political revolution going on in the Democratic Party, as well as in the Republican Party. You are running against a Democrat, but you're running against a conservative Democrat. And it seems to me one of the reasons why the whole progressive conversation, one of the reasons we're doing the summit, is because I think people need to remember that it's not going to be enough just to try to elect a progressive president. That progressive president, or any Democratic president for that matter, will be obstructed all over the place if that person is dealing obviously with Republicans, but also with Democrats that do not support this kind of progressive agenda. So I want to hear about what the issues are that you support, that you stand for, that are part of this larger effort to really lead America in a kind of radically new direction. Radically in the sense that, to me, the American idea is radical. And that which now is considered so far left should be considered right smack dab in the middle, because it certainly is in Europe and other places. Tell me about your agenda. Tell me about the things that you want to do. And also you might throw in there, as a 25-year-old, what makes you think you're going to be able to do it?
Yeah, absolutely. So it's an important question to answer. Why, as a Democrat, am I running against another Democrat? Well, the reality is the person that I'm running against is the most conservative Democrat in the entire New Jersey delegation. Since he's been in Congress, he's voted with Republicans on virtually every major controversial piece of legislation. Things like the Keystone Pipeline, repeated defense spending bills. He voted against the president and peace on the Iran deal. He voted to keep refugees out of the country, an issue which I really think speaks to who we are as a nation, offering compassion and kindness to people who need it around the world. So he's someone who is in some ways more dangerous than even having a Republican in the seat, because Democrats can't rely on him for the votes and for pushing forward these progressive ideals that we all really believe in. And for me, issues that are incredibly important, first and foremost, I think, is campaign finance reform. And I think that's so important because until we really address that, until we keep our democracy from being for sale, we can't have the kind of policy disagreements that we might want to have. So I just think that is vitally important. It's why it's first on all of the literature that we hand out.
I think that so much of what you just said already would make me run to your website, alexlawforcongress.com. For me personally, I do think the Iran deal is one issue where many progressives actually were against the Iran deal. I don't think that the Iran deal is a black-white progressive versus not. I say that because I myself was against it, and I think of myself as very, very progressive. But everything else you said, to me, that's amazing. It makes me wonder why he is even a Democrat. But be that as it may, that kind of conservative, corporate-based Democrat is as obstructive to progressive ideals as the Republicans are. How are you going to win this thing, Alex?
Well, that's been the incredible thing about our campaign and how we've put it together. So typically when you run for public office, at least how things are now, you go to a group of rich people and you say, hey, do you like me? And if they say yes, then you can run. And if they say no, you're really in a tough spot. But instead of doing that, I'm not someone that is personally wealthy. My dad is a public school teacher. My mom's a small business owner. We decided to take our case to people and just start knocking on doors, because I think in this country, in the United States of America, if you have a willingness to go out there and talk to people and put yourself on the line, you should have a chance in politics, and that's exactly what
Well,
we did.
when you say that we need to get the money out of politics, I agree with you 100%. What if you were a congressman? What is the best strategy? There are a lot of ideas out there. There's Mayday, there's Wolfpack, there's Lawrence Lessig. There are a lot of people talking about this. What do you think is the best strategy, both in Congress and outside of Congress, for all of us to focus on in order to get the money out of politics? Is it still within the standard framework of campaign finance reform, or in your mind, is it a constitutional amendment? If it's a constitutional amendment, what would you have that amendment say? Would it go as far as establishing public funding for federal campaigns? And how would you like to see that go down? I mean, if you're going to be a real voice standing for that issue, what would you actually be articulating?
Well, I think that groups like Wolfpack and Mayday and Professor Lessig, the things that they're doing are incredibly important for building the infrastructure that we need for when that constitutional amendment does happen. And I would support that. I would support public funding for elections and taking down Citizens United and things to that nature. But I think the most important strategy, one that is often overlooked by legislatures, is the idea that we can do something now before a constitutional amendment. Look to what Seattle did this past year, making pay-to-play illegal. And pay-to-play is really the fundamental piece of corruption all across the country. And this is something that municipalities or counties or even states can do without a constitutional amendment. And essentially what it does is it bans companies that do business in a certain area from contributing to politicians that control the contracts for those businesses. And that simple piece of legislation, I think, is crucial to really fundamentally shifting the conversation in campaign finance reform.
I really admire you for your focus on that, for your pointing out to people what Seattle has done, et cetera. And as a congressman, of course, it's not a local race. What would you, in the context of the House of Representatives, as a congressman, what would be your proposal, and what would you be working on, obviously with other progressives, to try to move the conversation and the activism forward as a congressman?
Well, absolutely. And I think that as a congressman, in the strict duties of a congressman, it would be working towards that constitutional amendment. And that only happens when the national conversation continues to build, that infrastructure that these other groups are putting together is put into place. But as you know, as someone in the public light, there are other things that go along with the position besides the strict duties of it. And being the first millennial, the first person born in the 1990s to be elected to federal office, I think I could lend my voice to this cause in a way that would potentially educate folks at a municipal or state or county level on how to do these things for pay-to-play, and sort of make this issue a bigger one and a clearer and easier one to understand for Americans all across the country.
I like that answer, and I look forward to the opportunity to hold you to it, because you certainly made me believe that when you're in Congress, for those of us who are working on this issue and we come knocking at your door, you're not going to just send some aide to talk to us. You'll be there and you'll listen to us and you'll work with us to get this thing going.
Yeah, absolutely. And Marianne, if you'll allow me, let me just finish that answer I was talking about before for how we win, because I think that's an important question for people. When you're looking at, Alex Law, a 25-year-old running for Congress, it's important to say, hey, I'm not wasting my time. This guy's got a real shot to win. So in my district, there's 172,000 Democrats. And historically, if you look at all the data, we've determined that if we can get just 20,000 votes, because my opponent, for all his money and power, only got about 18,000 in the Democratic primary last time. If we can get 20,000 votes, we can be successful here. So what we've done is we've broken the district up into small areas. And this is important for anyone who's running for office across the country to think about things in this way, creating small, completable tasks. And we've done that, and we've placed volunteers in each one of these areas, and those folks are then engaging people in their areas. So that's one thing we're doing. We're also sort of changing the way that social media is done in politics in South Jersey, so having good content, good videos is always important. And the third thing, which I think is particularly interesting for this audience, is we've created a first of its kind for South Jersey, but has been used by Obama and people like Bernie Sanders nationally, a call application. So supporters all across the country can go to callsforalex.com, which is linked from our main website, alexlawforcongress.com, and they can go there and make calls for us and call Democrats in our area and make a difference in this election, which is of course important for for the national conversation around progressive ideals?
Well, I just think you're great. I'll tell you, I came a few months ago, right, to your district. I did
Yes.
a fundraiser for you, and I'm happy to say you were good then, but you have really grown as a candidate. The focus, the enthusiasm, I'm really happy for you. I'm really impressed. And what you're doing is important. And not only standing, I love that you've endorsed Bernie. I love the issues you say you feel strongly about. And I love the fact that you're taking on a conservative Democrat. I think it's so important. And people such as yourself really deserve support. So I want to reiterate to all of the people watching right now to go to your website, Alex Law, L-A-W, alexlawforcongress.com. And I also love the second thing you said, callsforalex.com. So
Yes.
people can support you, even if they're not from your district, if they're not from New Jersey, in helping your campaign. I wish you the very best. Any last words you'd like to give to the progressive audience out there who wants to kick ass and make all this happen, Alex?
Well, a couple of things. One, I want to say, if you are looking at how to get involved in your area, not necessarily with my campaign, but you want to run for something, message me through the website. I have people do that every week, and I give as much advice as I possibly can about the lessons we've learned here over the last 18 months, because this campaign is fundamentally about people in politics, and I think that's often lost on campaigns across the country. So you can get involved in our campaign, or if you want to do something where you're at, I'd be happy to help in any way that I can.
That sounds really good, because we need not just one 25-year-old, not just one millennial in there. We need a lot of them, because it's your future after all. God bless you, Alex. I hope that you continue to do what you're doing. And one more thing, when's your primary?
It is June 7th, 2016.
June 7th. 2016, that means right around the corner. Okay,
Yes.
folks, I hope that you will help Alex Law get elected to Congress in New Jersey's 1st District. Go to alexlawforcongress.com, go to callsforalex.com, and participate. That's what all of this is about, participate. You've met Alex Law, and I think you'll agree with me. He deserves the support.
Thank you,
take
Marianne.
care. That's it for this episode. I hope that you enjoyed these interviews and that you will continue to be with us for this Progressive Online Summit, that you will continue to meet the candidates who can make the difference. We'll help them so they can help us. Thanks.